Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux and Mike Beer here with a stakes preview for Aqueduct this Sunday. Race number 7 is one of several stakes races on the card. It's the Forever Together, a mile and a 16th on the outer turf course. And this is for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. And Mike, in terms of the field here, we're going to look at these fillies and mares, 8 in the main body, 2 main track only runners, both trained by Linda Rice. It just felt like a lot of these horses, they're very similar and maybe no one really stands out on their own.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think you're probably going to have the 2 favorites and the 2 outside posts here, the 7 and the 8. The real question is, who do you trust in this race? And I thought it was just really, really hard to trust anybody in this field. And ultimately, maybe trips will be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you can look at some of these horses and, maybe they didn't run well last time out, 2 and 3 starts back. They were good performances, but not good enough to win. And that's kind of the story with these 8 runners for the most part. A couple of them, though, do have more recent wins. We'll take a look at the time form, pace projections here. And a faith in humanity here for Chad Brown, one of 2 in the field for him. She likes to be forwardly placed. Now, we haven't seen her that much in 2023, 2 starts, but I'd have to think she's going to be forward. And you also mentioned the other outside runner, probably taking some respect in here, Regal Realm. She's another one that likes to be forward from the gate.
Yeah, I thought they would both go forward from the outside here. Faith in Humanity should make the lead. That's her running style. We'll see if she can bounce back off of a performance that's hard to reconcile in her most recent start. I don't know what happened there, but I guess the fact that she's back in a couple months is a good sign for her. But I don't, the pace projector sort of has her loose on the lead. I didn't really see the race that way. I don't think Regal Realm's going to let this horse just get away on an easy pace.
I don't think so either. And I even think looking at some horses like Tass and Uncorked, I don't know, I wouldn't call them speed horses, but they've still been forward on paces that maybe are moderate. They're not necessarily fast, but they're good enough that you think maybe they could press the pace. And who knows, how fast they really will go early here. Just to note that we do see that late pace flag here on the number 6. Chili Flag, who looks to be one of the strong closers in this field. But we'll kick it off with the horse on the rail, the number 1, Willakaya. This one is one of several for trainer Graham Motion in this field, a 4-year-old daughter of Tappet, who we'll take a look at her most recent effort at Keeneland. Saffron Moon ends up being much the best here in the end, but I did like that at least she did make somewhat of an impact here in the stretch.
Yeah, she races on pretty nicely here. Overall, I thought her trip was a good one. And she's just no match for this Chad Brown runner who takes over mid-stretch and goes on with it. Clearly second best in this race. She was also second best in a stakes race 2 starts back where she just didn't come close to Full Count Felicia, who's been in really good form. I don't know. I guess there are some things to like about this horse more than anything else, just that that she's probably going to show up in a race where there may be some question marks about some of the others. I just wondered if she was good enough.
Now her stablemate draws directly to her outside, the number 2, Sigamia. This one who we haven't seen in a couple of months, haven't seen since late August in Ireland. And, it's kind of been well-traveled throughout her career, though 0 for 3 in 2023 as a 4-year-old. She stood out a little bit more last year as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just a sort of a light campaign so far this year, but her first 2 starts this year were both pretty good performances, particularly the race 2 back in the Group 3. The horse that won that race, Zarinsk, is actually pretty good. She's 5 for 10. She came out of this race to win a Group 2 right after, and she just went right to the front in that race and wired that field. I thought Sigamia ran really well in there just to be second best. I'm not sure how good she actually is. I think that they have, if nothing else, they've shipped her over and found the right race to run her in because there are no stars in this field. So I feel like she might match up pretty well. And I just like that they're going to go at least a little bit shorter with it. They tried 9 furlongs with her twice over there, and it seemed like she did not want to go that far.
I also thought it was interesting. I don't look at this too often, but she's carried some heavy weight as a 4-year-old in some of those races where there were a ton of 3-year-olds and she was facing some younger fillies. So interesting to see her now carry 121. Now to her outsides, the Australian bred filly, the number 3 Uncorked, is one of the Brittany Russell barn. She was able to win 3 starts back at Monmouth, followed that up with a nice race at Delaware that was a restricted race. But last time out, 1 1/8 really didn't want anything to do with that distance.
Yeah, I agree with you. That wasn't a good performance. She wasn't going to beat technical analysis anyway, most likely. So, I mean, I guess you could say it's a little bit of class relief for her. And then you just have to ask yourself, do you want to bet her off of any of her other races? I kind of didn't, but again, it's just one of those situations where she could get a good trip in here. And who are you really afraid of at shorter prices toward the outside?
The number 4, Tass, was claimed 2 starts back for 40,000 in the first start for the barn. She's able to snap that kind of losing streak where she's hitting the door and just not being able to get the job done. We'll take a look at that race back on October 19th. And I thought for Jorge Abreu's kind of first start with this one in the barn, she took a little bit of a step forward. And I like that she's going to be able to beat Chili Flag in here and run her down late.
Yeah, Chili Flag had first run on her in this race, but Taz is going to get out and then out finish this horse at the end. It is a good performance, first off the claim here. I'll readily admit I'm Taz's biggest fan. I've always liked her going all the way back. I also always looked at her as sort of a mid to high level claiming kind of horse and not a stakes kind of horse, but maybe Abreu's got her turned around.
And you make a good point there. If you go back to her tries last year in those grade 3 events or even those stakes races, she ran okay, but not good enough to really crack the top 3. Now to her outsides, another 4-year-old filly in here, the number 5, Malavath. This one out of the Christophe Clement barn. Curious to get your thoughts. Obviously, she comes here for her first start. It's the Breeders' Cup Mile. And then for 2 starts since then, she's faced the girls, just hasn't been able to really shine.
Yeah, she's one of the horses that makes this race really tough because her first 2 starts in North America, she came over for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf and missed by a half length. And then she comes back for the Breeders' Cup Mile the next year and runs a triple-digit buyer. I guess you could look at her and just say, listen, they're pressing on with her. She's going to run her good race here, and her good race is plenty good enough to beat this field. She's been terrible in her last 2 starts. I don't see how you could bet her in this race unless she was some kind of big price.
Yeah, and you say terrible. I mean, compared to everyone else, she's got a 68, a 79 buyer speed figure. She's been well beaten in both of those races. And, I missed that. But yeah, she races 2-year-old. And even then, it was a good performance. And against the boys, you pointed out the triple-digit buyer. Just looking at the depth of that field for the Breeders' Cup Mile, I mean, that's a huge performance. And she's been a head-scratcher since then. Now, to the outside, we've already mentioned the name, Chili Flag, 1 of 2 for Chad Brown in here. Just been second best in those last 2. I don't know if you can really make excuses, especially for the effort last time out. And you mentioned you're a TAS fan, ends up getting the job done. But in my opinion, Chili Flag should have won that race.
Yeah, we showed the replay there. She had first run in there, had the lead in the stretch, and then just couldn't finish it off. I mean, I guess maybe 1 1/8 is too far for her. Maybe that's her excuse. She didn't want to go that far, so dropping back a little bit in distance will really help her here. The lost 2 back rather, I wouldn't be too hard on her for. She got wired that day. That was a really slow pace, and she still actually made a really good run into that race. That was a fast final quarter, and she was making up ground. I really like her first 4 starts over here. I don't like the last one, but maybe the 9 furlongs was just too far for her.
Just going to make her second start since the middle of August at that race at Saratoga, so maybe she can improve second off the layoff. Her stablemate is to her outside, Faith and Humanity, who was pretty good on those first 4 starts, 3 wins, and then more recently in that first start off that extended layoff, she just looked like she hit a wall in the stretch.
Yeah, you just have to ask yourself what happened there. I mean, I don't know what the deal was, but she just totally stopped in mid-stretch and was basically eased at the end at 3 to 5 too. So we'll see what kind of issue it has been resolved here for Chad Brown. I don't know what to do with her because I know she's good enough to win here, and maybe she'll just make the lead and wire this field. I had a tough time buying into her anyway, though, actually, before that last race. I know she won a couple of grade 3s, 2 and 3 starts back, just absolutely loose on super slow paces. And it just sort of made me wonder how good she actually is. And I still don't know because she was terrible last time.
Yeah, I agree. You look at the Pebbles 3 starts back at pedestrian-like fractions, and I understand she ends up beating Gina Romantica, but you wonder if the pace was a little hotter, would have that happened? I don't think so because she was shortening up in those final stages of the wire. So great point that you make there with Faith and Humanity. Then we'll round out the main body of the field here with number 8, Regal Realm. This one out of the Jonathan Thomas barn. We'll take a look at the most recent performance, which is at Kentucky Downs. And every time we show these replays, it's a course that some horses love, some don't. She was loose on the lead, and that's where she stayed.
Yeah, she just never really gives this field a chance. She had a super soft trip in this race, though. The pace was really slow. And she just never faced a challenge up there. That being said, even her prior races are all pretty good, though. I mean, I sort of felt like when I looked at it, I sort of regarded her as the horse to beat in this race. We'll see what kind of trip she can pull from the outside post. I just think she's pretty good, and I think she could get the right trip in this race. I think she's the horse to beat, but, how short do you really want to go on her?
And I'll just make a note here. The 9 and the 10 are both main track onlys, both trained by Linda Rice, that being the 9 Movie Moxie and the 10 Hot Fudge. But looking at the main body of 8 here, I said it earlier, Mike. I mean, I felt like no one here on paper, at least, looked like they really want to win their races. I mean, they've gotten the job done or they've been close to doing it. And I thought it was a wide open race. And I can see you're going to go with the new face here with the number 2.
Yeah, that's mostly why I took her. I just don't really I hate this race. I don't really trust anybody that we've been seeing stateside anyway. I'll take the new face and hope she pulls the right trip in this race. the more I think about it, and the more we talked about your top pick Chili Flag, I wish I had her higher in here because I do like all of her races except for that last one, and maybe that distance was just too far for her.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I'm just wondering in terms of, you know, the pace, she is going to need a little help, but I think the pace will be decent enough that she'll get the trip just off of it and hopefully make that one late run that we've seen her make time and time again. But as you mentioned, I go with the 6, Chili Flag on top. The number 2 here for Mike Beer and what looks to be a wide open but a tricky edition of the Forever Together. Good luck.